and like discovering the tracks without worrying about like maybe the MIDI is going to start playing, or like I want it all there.
Me
I
too.
want it like these are the tracks for the mix. Let's take it from there. Otherwise, it's too chaotic for me.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I generally have like a sub session for every instrument I record. Like I'll have my guitar session, my drum session.
I do the same thing.
It's just kind of like it frees up the workspace. And if I want to have 1,000 tracks of guitars, I have 1,000 tracks of guitars, and I'll have a stereo bounce of everything else, and I can see what I want, and then I'll submix that down. And like yourself, once I'm in the final mixing session, everything is as close as it can be to mixed and consolidated before I start mixing.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I do. I'll have like a drum session, a vocal session, a guitar session, and then I'll combine them. I'll collate them all together at the very end.
Yep, me too.
Because otherwise, it's too much. It's too much processing power. Maybe it's time for me to get one of those new Macs, but I'm on like a 2015 Intel iMac, so my days may be limited.
That's probably why as well. Probably coming from computers that didn't have a lot of juice. Right. I probably got in the habit of just submixing things down, and now that's my workflow. Even though I've got machines that can handle it, I just prefer to do that now.
Do you have like one of the newer M1s, or you have like a Windows?
I'm a Windows guy, and believe it or not, the computer I track on in the A room of the studio I work out of is all Mac. So I'm constantly going back and forth between the two, and I have no real real dog in the Mac versus Windows fight. I think they're both awesome, platforms to create on. But the Windows machine I'm using is about 13 years old still. I'm on Windows 7, and the guy that built it for me, and I've got all of my Aero themes turned off and stuff, so it kind of looks like Windows 2000. And people will come in and trip out. They'll be like, "Dude, are you on Windows 2? What's going on with your OS? That's some like dated shit." And so I kind of think that's cool. Like it trips people out a little bit. But yeah, the guy that built it for me, Vin at Avum Technology in Melbourne, he just crushed it. So I kind of get him to build all of my systems, and usually one will last me 13 years. So
yeah. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about mixing. Love to hear your approach to mixing. Any tried and true techniques, philosophies, routing, anything that you're kind of thinking about as you're getting into a mix?
For sure. I mean, for many years, the mix stage was something that kind of intimidated me, and was always kind of something that I felt like I really didn't have my head around. It's only been of the last several years that I've kind of consolidated some techniques and workflows that seem to work for me. And again, it's different. I have several different templates depending on the genre or style of song. I don't mix from a pre-mix template per se. I'll generally have my busing and my routing and a couple of kind of instances of some go-to plugins ready to go, but I kind of want to hear everything, how it's working before it's processed. So I don't have a traditional pre-mix template, just some kind of different options for routing and stuff like that. So if it's something pretty modern and pretty heavy, I'm probably going to be using a bit of a top-down approach. So I'll have my busing all routed, and I'll have my master plugins instantiated and ready to go. So I'll have a couple of clippers and limiters at the end of my chain, some compression at the start of the chain, a bit of EQ, some saturation in the middle, and I'll kind of work backwards from there. I'll try to achieve a balance with my master processing on, and try to do as little as possible to the individual channels and elements, unless something's standing out to me. I really focus on balance, and it was something I struggled with in the past. For some reason, all of my drums would always kind of come out sounding like Born in the USA or something, like that giant Bob Clear Mountain snare drum. I don't know why. Every mix I would do, I would look back on and go, why is the drum the size of a tower and everything else is tiny? And I think over the years I realized
because you loved it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I had a tendency to just make drums huge, kind of thing. But yeah, so I'm top down mixing for some of the more heavy stuff, and for some of the more like kind of, I guess what I'd describe as open stuff like pop punk or hard rock. I might have a different approach, and if I'm not mastering and I'm just mixing, I might be a little bit less heavy handed with the top down stuff. I might maybe just run a limiter to get a bit of excitement and competitive level. But I'll mix fairly wide open in terms of compression on the bus and stuff like that. I find, that the top-down approach for the very hard-hitting squash stuff is pretty important and integral to that end result. But for some of the more rocky and open stuff, you can get away with a bit of a wider open two bus.
You're what kind of like bus compression do you do for like heavy music? Like what is that? Is that like just like the SSL stuff, or do you have, or is it a little bit different?
Depends on how fast the stuff is, I think. Like if it's pretty shredding, blast beat style drumming like the Wings of Thanatos track, I might kind of just be shaving off a dB or two with like some type of SSL. I love the Brainworks Townhouse.
Yeah, I'm hip to it.
I'm
on it now.
It's so good. Hey, it's like it's got movement, and movement and vibe.
It has more punch than the regular SSL, and so
it does.
Depending on the track I'm working on, I'll sometimes use like the Slate SSL or even the Waves SSL.
Yeah, me too.
But the Slate SSL works really well if the things kind of feel really open in the low end and not like too punchy, and I want that. But if I want things to punch, then the Townhouse just is killing.
Yeah.
And that's like 80%. That's 80% of mixes, I would say.
Yeah, me too. And those couple you mentioned are the same that are on my rotation, just the Slate SSL style. And yeah, if it's pretty heavy, I'm generally kind of shaving off just and pretty fast. I'm shaving off just 1 to 2 dB of some of the bigger parts in the songs and trying to kind of touch it as transparently as I can. If it's kind of like more groovy, genty, stuff where the snare lands on the 2 and 4s or the 3s, and it's a bit more wide open in terms of groove and pocket, I might exaggerate that a little bit and kind of have an SSL style kind of ducking the mix by a couple dB every time a snare hits, which I think is pretty common amongst the metal community. I think we all know where that originated, and everybody has followed suit. I think
where did that originate for somebody who doesn't know?
I dare to say Nolly from Periphery, who's a fantastic, ex-member of Periphery, who's just such a fantastic engineer and has such an ear for vibe and tones and such great taste. He, I think, popularized that kind of style of less traditional master bus compression, of kind of
pumping,
a pretty slow attack, fast release, having the compressor clamp down on everything once the snare hits it. So it's kind of reacting to the snare and pushing the rest of the mix down by a dB. In fact, I had a client come in a couple of months ago, and he was a pretty good engineer himself, and we bonded over the over the Nolly 2 bus settings kind of thing. So it's out there. So for something like that, I'll do that and maybe follow it up with a more traditional kind of pumpy compression to get a bit of vibe over everything and smooth it out. But yeah, it's anything I'm trying to do, I'm not squashing it too heavily. I'm trying to be fairly light on the 2 bus compression, and I might go kind of hard on my drum bus compression or my parallel or stuff like that to get more excitement out of it. But I'm never trying not to overcook it, at least.
Yeah. And to go back to the vocal thing, which I think I realized I didn't actually fully finish up with you, is are you generating like subharmonic frequencies in some of these vocals? Are you adding any crazy effects to kind of get them to have more texture, have more of that thing that pushes through?
Yeah, definitely. I think like saturation is huge with those vocals. I kind of like to look at them as like high gain guitars in a lot of ways. So I might be doing that to both smooth over some weird overtones that come with that vocal style. There might be some throaty or kind of for lack of a better term, kind of mucusy overtones depending on the vocalist. And we might want to exaggerate or tame that depending on the style of music. So, it's a bit of saturation goes a long way with that. And generally in parallel, I was using a kind of like not a very common saturator. I think it's like the VSM that comes with the in the Plugin Alliance bundle, and that's like a multi-band mastering saturator, and I found that was cool.
Cool.
Just in parallel on Ascend, and maybe just focusing on the mid bands, and kind of messing around with the contour and response of that, and just blending it into taste. Generally, it's a bit of saturation and yeah, like harmonic excitement and stuff like that to just kind of get more aggression out of that vocal style.
Yeah, I love it. Whatever it takes,
Exactly.
Are these vocals wet? Are they like really like reverby delayed, or are they usually a bit more dry?
Generally, the heavier and faster it is, the drier it gets for me, with the exception of maybe like a throw, like, a delay or a big kind of like vocal bomb in a certain part, or maybe the chorus, I might bring in a little bit of reverb just to kind of sit the doubles back a little bit or something like that. But generally, I might use a bit of delay, but I'm trying to keep them really upfront and in your face. Yeah.
Well, dude, your mixes sound amazing. You're doing great
man.
work. Yeah. This has been such a pleasure to schmooze with you. As we get towards the end, I want to ask you some more general questions. We could get now we could kind of zoom out of the details and of the trees and look at more at the forest,
Sure.
so to speak. Just we all have days where we're kind of like super pumped to get in and do our work, and we also have days where we're a little bit less incentivized. Do you do anything to kind of stay in a good creative zone, good creative spirit, have good energies to kind of get in there, do your work? And it could be routines or just practices that you do that kind of keep you
Definitely.
in that space.
I think, outside of the studio, I try to keep as healthy as I can and like eat fairly clean, and I'm not particularly great at this aspect of it, but combating some of the sedentary lifestyle of the studio work is really important. I mean, I'm very lucky to have a partner that's very into fitness and nutrition and stuff like that, and I kind of allow her to experiment with different diets and stuff like that, and that's I'm very fortunate in that regard. So I tend to just keep my mindset as clean as possible, and try to eat good foods and whole foods, and have a fairly holistic approach to my health in terms of just trying to combat some of the pitfalls of studio life, like not getting any sun and, working crazy hours. I try to just get good sleep and try to treat my body as well as I can treat it. And that puts me in a position to be pretty hyped on just audio in general, because I really do love it. And I think I'm sure you can relate, this is a passion and a job, but it's a passion nonetheless. So I kind of keep my headspace in a place where I can be very grateful and appreciative of it. And then beyond that, having lots and lots, probably coming full circle to what we were saying before, having lots and lots of projects ongoing at once allows me to bounce between whatever I'm most stoked on at the time. And I mean, of course, I have to be mindful of deadlines and stuff like that. But on any given day where I don't have an actual recording session that's attended, or attended mix revisions or something like that, I can kind of afford to jump in and just kind of work on what's exciting me at any time. So, I might watch a video of a death metal band the night before and kind of go, wow, like death metal is really fascinating. That's cool. And I find I carry that over into the studio and go, oh, I'm working on a death metal release at the moment. I'm pretty hyped on death metal. It's cool. That's where my focus is right now. I'm going to work on that. And, then I might shift over to, like